On a fog-choked November morning, where the world blurred into shades of gray, Officer John Malia and his cadaver dog, Blue, picked their way along the forsaken edge of Gilgo Beach. The air was heavy with salt and rot, the dunes looming like silent witnesses under a bruised sky. This wasn't the first. Other women escorts, petite vanished, had surfaced in the dunes over years, their deaths a whispered rumor until now. The Long Island serial killer had a name but no face. See a shadow among them? A fisherman with blood on his hands. Long Island's charm turned sinister, a veneer over something festering. Days bled into weeks, and the dunes of Gilgo Beach, once a sanctuary for solitude, now whispered of death. The discovery of Melissa Barthelemi's remains had cracked the island's veneer, but what followed shattered it entirely. Lynn Barthelemy, Melissa's mother, haunted the police station, her voice raw from pleading. "She was my baby," she'd whisper, clutching a photo of Melissa, her smile frozen in time. Gilgo Beach killer strikes again. Was it a coincidence or a signature? Then, a chilling detail surfaced. Melissa's phone, traced to a burner, had pinged near a local motel the night she vanished. The motel's owner, a grizzled man with a limp, swore he saw nothing but his eyes darted too quickly, his hands unsteady. The cops leaned in, but he lawyered up, and the lead evaporated. And when would he strike again? News trucks clogged the streets, reporters thrusting microphones into tear-streaked faces, desperate for a soundbite. She avoided the station's chatter, her gaze distant, as if wrestling with a secret. Did she know something? Or was she just another soul frayed by the horror? Vigils sprang up, candles flickering against the dark, but they offered no warmth. The families united in grief, demanded answers, their voices a chorus of rage and sorrow. "How many more?" they cried. "How many before you catch him?" The police chief, haggard and hollow-eyed, promised justice, but his words rang empty. The killer was a ghost, slipping through their fingers, leaving only death in his wake. Her partner, Malia, watched her closely, unease prickling his spine. Trust was a fragile thing now, and even the badge offered no certainty. The island's residents, once proud of their home, now flinched at the attention, their paradise recast as a graveyard. Find who did this. But the cops had little to offer, just vague assurances and tired eyes. The killer left no trace, no DNA, no footprint in the sand. Only burlap sacks, coarse and common, wrapped around the bodies like shrouds. It was as if he mocked them, daring them to catch him. The island held its breath, waiting for the next shoe to drop. And then, on a bitter January night, it did. A jogger stumbled upon a burlap sack half buried in the snow, a pale hand peeking from its folds. The victim, Jessica Taylor, missing since 2003, her remains linking the past to the present. The killer had been hunting for years, his appetite insatiable. More bodies surfaced, each one a grim echo of the last young women, escorts, their lives discarded like refuse in the sand. The count climbed. Maureen Brainerd Barnes, Amber Lynn Costello, Megan Waterman, and others. Their names etched into the growing list of the lost. The Long Island serial killer had claimed them all, and with each new find, fear tightened its grip on the community. One thing was clear: the killer was out there, his next move cloaked in the gathering dark. Parents clutched their children closer, their eyes scanning every passerby for a hint of menace. Women who once walked alone now traveled in pairs, their keys clutched like weapons. The beaches, Long Island's pride, lay abandoned, the waves crashing against empty shores, as if mourning the lives taken. Even the local bars, usually alive with laughter, simmered with tension, conversations clipped, glances furtive. Trust a luxury no one could afford. A cop with too many secrets? It was meant to be routine, a training run through the mist, but Blue halted, nose quivering, then clawed at the sand with sudden fury. Detectives worked double shifts, their desks buried under tips and dead ends. The FBI joined the hunt, their profilers sketching a portrait of a predator. Methodical, patient, perhaps a local with intimate knowledge of the terrain. But who? The question gnawed at them, at everyone. Suspicion festered like a wound, a fisherman with a shadowed past. A businessman whose smile never reached his eyes, a or worse, someone in uniform hiding behind a badge. Suspicion spiraled. Jenkins' strange reaction, a local with a violent past, a businessman whose wealth masked something darker, yet every lead dissolved into the sand. What did the locket mean? Why had Melissa held it so tight? Was it a clue or a taunt? Malia's heart thudded as he brushed aside the grains, revealing a human hand, its fingers twisted as if clawing for freedom. Nestled in its grip gleamed a tarnished locket, its chain coiled like a snake. Whose was it? What secret did it guard? The body was Melissa Bartholomew's, a 24-year-old escort, lost to the world in 2009, her remains strewn across the beach like a broken puzzle. Malia radioed for help, his voice calm, but his eyes flicked to his partner, Officer Sarah Jenkins. She stared at the locket, her face a mask of shock. Did she know it? Her hands trembled as she turned away, too fast, too deliberate. What was she hiding? Word spread like wildfire through Long Island's quiet towns, igniting dread. Investigators descended, the fog curling around them like a living thing. Dusk bled into the horizon. The waves hissed against the shore, and the beach grew still. The fog of that November morning had long since lifted, but the shadow it cast over Long Island clung like a curse. The island, once a patchwork of quaint towns and affluent enclaves, now felt like a hunting ground. Streets that bustled with life grew hushed after dark. The victims' families were hollowed by grief, their pain sharpened by the investigation's maddening crawl. Yet, the police weren't idle. Squad cars prowled the highways, their lights slicing through the night. The media descended like vultures, their cameras hungry for the next grim headline. Amid the chaos, whispers of a pattern emerged. The victims were all petite, all escorts, all last seen near the same stretch of road. Meanwhile, Officer Sarah Jenkins, who'd paled at the sight of Melissa's locket, grew cagey. As winter deepened, so did the dread. The killer was out there, perhaps watching, perhaps planning. The discovery broke something in the community. Fear turned to fury. And so, Long Island waited, its soul scarred, its people haunted by a question that echoed in the wind. Who was he? Years dragged on, but the shadow of the Long Island serial killer refused to fade. The investigation, once a blaze of urgency, had dwindled to a smoldering ember, choked by dead ends and bureaucratic tangles. Lynn Bartholomew, Melissa's mother, aged a decade and a half that time, her eyes hollow from sleepless nights. She haunted the police station, clutching a file of her own lead snips from psychics. Whispers from the street, but the cops dismissed them, their patience worn thin. "We're doing all we can," they'd say, but their voices lacked conviction. Long Island's charm had curdled into suspicion. Neighbors eyed each other warily, their trust eroded by the killer's freedom. A witness came forward, a motel clerk who'd seen a man with Melissa the night she vanished. They hired private investigators, crowdfunded rewards, and kept the victims' names alive. Melissa, Maureen, Amber, Megan each, a plea for justice unmet. The island too held its breath, waiting for the day the truth would surface. He could be anyone, a neighbor, a passerby living mundanely among them. Who is he? Why these lives? The questions persist, chilling in their simplicity. As Lungachi, the reality of unsolved evil endures. That banality terrifies most. Long Island's idyllic veneer is cracked, its peace conditional, shadowed by the unsolved. But the killer was a shadow, slipping through time, his secrets buried deep. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a tattoo snaking up his neck. The sketch artist worked feverishly, producing a face that was both familiar and foreign. The case lingers, open but fading, with tips trickling in and hope thinning. The community wears its trauma quietly now. The beaches, once playgrounds, carry a hushed menace. Parents teach caution. The victims' stories echo as warnings. For families, the fight continues. Vigils glow each year, their resolve unbroken despite the silence from authorities. The cops plastered it across the island, but no name emerged. Was it him, or just another ghost? The beaches, once a refuge, lay desolate, the waves a constant reminder of the lives lost. Tourism waned, businesses shuttered, and the island's soul seemed to wither. The media, once ravenous, had moved on, but the fear lingered. a low hum beneath the surface. Who was he? A question asked in every glance, every locked door. The families formed a grim alliance, their pain a shared language. They held vigils, their candles flickering against the dark, but the light never reached the truth. The Suffolk County Police, the FBI, and a revolving door of task forces had pored over the evidence, yet the killer remained a phantom, faceless, nameless, free. Leads were mishandled, evidence sat untested, and jurisdictional squabbles stalled progress. She'd taken 2 night shifts patrolling the dunes alone, her flashlight cutting through the fog like a blade. Malia, her partner, pressed her once, his voice low. "Ah, what's eating you, Sarah?" She'd flinched, her gaze darting to the horizon. "Nothing," she'd muttered, but the lie hung between them. Did she know something? Or was she just another casualty of the case's weight? The question gnawed at Malia, but he kept his distance, afraid of what he might uncover. The FBI's involvement brought hope, but their profile, a white male, 30 to 50, likely a local with a dark past, felt like a shot in the dark. The killer left no DNA, no fingerprints, just burlap sacks and bodies arranged with chilling precision. Was he a cop, privy to forensic tricks? Theory whispered in hushed tones, but no proof surfaced. The case was a labyrinth with no exit, each lead a mirage that dissolved upon approach. Who was he? Why these women? The questions hung heavy, unanswered, as the island grappled with a mystery as relentless as the tide. The victims' families were trapped in a purgatory of grief and rage. The investigation's failures were glaring. Early on, the victims' sex work backgrounds had bred indifference, a bias that cost precious time. Then there was Officer Sarah Jenkins, her behavior increasingly erratic. The community too bore scars. Amid the stagnation, a new lead flickered to life. As the years stretched on, the case grew cold, but the families refused to surrender. And so, the questions lingered, as haunting as the fog that cloaked Gilgo Beach. Who was he? Why these lives? And would he ever be caught? Over a decade has passed since that fateful discovery on Gilgo Beach, yet the Long Island serial killer remains a phantom. Law enforcement reflects on lessons learned, the need for unity, for valuing every life equally. But the killer's freedom is the sharpest sting. This is more than a cold case, it's a wound that won't heal, a testament to loss and the haunting power of the unknown.